Tiwari, at the heart of your book is, I'm quoting you here, the struggle of... At the heart of your book is, something you call the struggle of nations, particularly India, to preserve our strategic autonomy, sir. You think under the current circumstances, India has managed to do that?
Look, the situation in West Asia or the greater Middle East is a complex situation. We have diaspora, almost 10 million people in countries all over the greater Middle East, countries which are in an adversarial situation with each other. However, having said that, there are certain traditions of Indian foreign policy which go back all the way to the Asian Relations Conference of 1946, even before India became independent. And under those circumstances, it raises some very pertinent questions. For example, should India be accepting regime change by force? Should India be accepting the abduction of heads of states, the targeted assassination of government functionaries in another sovereign geography? Should India not have condoled the killing of the supreme leader of Iran? After all, condolence resolutions were passed even by the Legislative Assembly of Punjab. Should we not have condoled the killing of 196 innocent school children in a Tomahawk missile strike, which was called out by none other than the New York Times? So under those circumstances, strategic autonomy does not mean silence. Strategic autonomy means that you need to very finely navigate or nimbly navigate what is a difficult situation. But complete silence on very vital questions of foreign policy, which the conflict in West Asia or the conduct of the still biggest outside balancer of power, the hegemon of the world, is currently raising, are questions which go to the very heart of the principles on which Indian foreign policy stands. And that is why it is important that when you talk about strategic autonomy does not mean strategic silence.
But it could mean responsible statecraft, as Mr. Tharoor is saying. And let me just quote you here. I was reading somewhere, you have somewhere said that when you're crossing a river, you feel the pebbles when you cross, right? Because the currents could be going anywhere. You don't want to fall into the water and drown. Therefore, you feel the pebbles and you walk carefully. That's what India is doing. Confrontation, Mr. Tiwari, has a cost. Why should we, at this point of time, when the situation is tough for us as well, be willing to pay that cost?
But when you see an alligator in those waters, then you might as well scream. So therefore, you need to tread carefully by feeling the stones under your feet. But if you see a crocodile or an alligator in those waters, you might as well scream and scream very loudly. And that's why I'm saying, you see, there are certain threads which run through the ethos of Indian foreign policy. And I'm not talking about a government here or a government there. It has been a continuum across different governments, even NDA, BJP governments, even governments belonging to the Janata Party or the National Front. And that is why on some of these critical questions, the silence of the government actually comes across as deafening, and I'm being very polite and diplomatic about it.
Okay. You've also argued in your book that navigating an increasingly unstable world will depend as much on internal cohesion as on strategic diplomacy. Help me understand what you mean by internal cohesion, and does that mean political cohesion as well, sir?
So therefore, if you go to the opening chapter of that, or the opening lines of the chapter on national security in my book, so the British actually managed the periphery of India through treaties, right? Because the British were an empire, they had no fixed boundaries, They looked at territory on the periphery as frontiers. When we transited to being a sovereign nation, an independent nation with fixed boundaries, we tried to navigate that through treaties, right? Both in the Northwest and we actually negotiated it through constitutional guarantees, both in the Northwest and in the Northeast. Going all the way back to 1947, across 8 decades, our fundamental national security challenges still lie in the Northeast and the Northwestern part of India. And that's where the bulk of your minorities live. Of course, there's a challenge in central India, which to a great extent has been surmounted, the problem of left-wing extremism. That's a different problem. But if you look at the Northwest and the Northeast, that's where you've had the maximum amount of turbulence. So therefore, your greatest antidote or to any external challenge is actually your internal cohesion. And at this point in time, your internal cohesion is stretched very taut. So under those circumstances, any democracy or any government which needs to carry everybody along has to govern from the center. In fact, when you come into government, even if you are coming from an extreme position, you must try and move towards the center, because that is the inflection point of gravity from which you can govern a country as diverse and as complex as India.